I'm Alexandra Solomon. I'm so happy to be here with you, Laura, and with your community. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and couples therapist by training, and I've been in practice for over 20 years. And my work sort of moves between three corners of a triangle. One is that I'm in practice. I have a caseload of individuals and couples at all stages of life and relationship development. I've been doing that for a very long time. I've been an
Mm.
academic my whole career. So I'm on faculty at Northwestern University. I spent many years training graduate students to become marriage and family therapists, taught them how to do couples therapy. And then I continue to teach undergraduate relationship education class called Building Loving and Lasting Relationships, Marriage 101, which has been just a delight for me for 20, we will teach this year the 23rd teaching of that class. And then I'm a translator. So I take what we do in therapy offices and research labs and academic circles and make sure that that information is in the hands of the general public in really usable, applicable ways. And so that shows up in my podcast, Reimagining Love, in the books that I write, both Loving Bravely and Taking Sexy Back, and then my new third book, which is called Love Every Day, and social media. So those are the ways that I love to translate, and conversations with people like you. I love, being in these spaces and showing up and being of service. So that's me and my work. And then my biggest symptom, I will tell you, Laura, I don't even know how you got me to do this. I have not spoken publicly about my menopause journey at all, which I think speaks to the shame and stigma that continues around perimenopause and menopause. And so I don't know how you did it, but here I go, naming a symptom. I suppose my biggest challenge was the hot flashes really frightened and disturbed me and were just hard to manage. And I worked very closely with a Chinese herbalist, acupuncturist. I went into menopause very, very, very young. My symptoms started really young. And so I was under the care of an acupuncturist and herbalist for a long time. And she helped me manage all of the symptoms I was having, first and foremost, hot flashes. I'm also under the care of an endocrinologist for some bone loss that I've experienced as part of menopause. So it's been part of my journey for a while at this point, even though I just turned 50. And it's been not particularly easy for me.
Well, thank you so much for opening up and, breaking the stigma, as you're saying. I think that's why we're building Perry, because there are, so many different passages in our lives, and some are more celebrated than others, especially when it comes to womanhood. If you talk of pregnancy or fertility, those are much more celebrated, talked openly about. And then when it comes to that next phase, which, it's very normal to start in your late 30s, early 40s, it becomes much more of a hush topic. And, Gen X broke up the conversations. Now millennials are entering the stage. So it's really about not having a stigma anymore and not hushing about it. So thank you so much for opening up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Dr. Solomon, we are a community platform, so we really opened the gates to our community. We introduced you. Many of our community members already knew you as well, of course, through your book, through your podcast, Reimagining Love, but also through your social media presence. So we collected 5 questions from the community. Relationship is always a very, very prominent conversation in our space, because with perimenopause, especially with perimenopause, so many changes come, changes to your body, but also changes to your life. If you choose to have kids or have teenage kids, that can also kind of, bring tension to the mix, and relationships often change throughout that period. So this is definitely a very, very prominent topic in our community. And I would just love to read you our first question from a community member who, was very eager to get her opinion, your opinion on her situation.
Great.
Hi, I'm Jane, a 47-year-old from Chicago. My wife and I have been married for 10 years. There's this common myth that menopause makes a relationship between two women less rocky than with a man, which is not the case for us. My wife feels better than ever. We're the same age. And I feel like an old bag of potatoes. Zero sex drive, zero drive at all. She doesn't understand. Please help.
Sweet Jane. A little bag of potatoes. Oh, gosh. Well, first of all, I'm so glad that we're talking about that we'll sort of unpack menopause in a queer relationship, because it is, right, it is for, I think it makes sense to me that there's a way in which there's a risk of idealizing that because we're both on this journey, we can really see each other and validate each other. And then I can imagine the space between Jane and her wife, there's all kinds of added complexities, because of course, no two women going through menopause are going to have the same journey. And in that space of difference, right, in any space of difference in intimate partnership, it's really hard to just hold difference as difference, because difference activates emotions of all kinds. And perhaps also for Jane and her wife, perhaps there have been things where they have just been so aligned. They may share a wardrobe. They may share, hair products. Like there may be ways that there is like sort of so much similarity, so much connection, so much ease around the sameness in that way. So perhaps for the two of them, this difference in their menopause journeys is additionally painful, because wait a minute, we do things the same way so often, and now we're not doing this the same way. So there's maybe some grief in that. And I can imagine for Jane, there's perhaps also some envy in that. Like, how come my wife gets to be gliding through, looking hotter than ever, feeling better than ever, and here I am, a little bag of potatoes. So I would want first and foremost for Jane to have like, I put my hand up to my chest because I want Jane to have deep, deep, deep self-compassion, that she's not doing menopause wrong, and she's got, and to resist the urge to do this kind of better or worse, that, her wife's doing it better and she's doing it worse. So the self-compassion that comes from just honoring her journey as such. Because if she's really struggling to come into conversation with her wife, if she's coming into that conversation with her wife without self-compassion, then she's going to be defensive. She's going to perhaps be at risk of complaining more, right? Because if she's not offering compassion to herself, then she's going to be like listing her symptoms in the hope that her wife will give her compassion, or that her wife will give her pity, or that her wife will give her validation. So of course, I always want our partners to be offering reassurance and validation and witnessing. But the thing I know for sure is she can't outsource that to her wife. She has to also be offering that to herself. So I want her to have that deep compassion for herself, that she's not doing it wrong, she's doing it differently. Perhaps I want her to have some women in her life who are also feeling like shit, that she can, kind of say that to, and have that, affinity that it is. That's why I'm sure the Perry community is really important for her. And then the pragmatic stuff, right, around sex, the sex drive stuff, is she's not making that up. So I think the first thing would be that she's not, that it is a challenge. She's not broken. It's a challenge. And so it is an opportunity for she and her wife to really sit shoulder to shoulder and look together at, what do we do? What do we do now in this space of desire difference? And the first thing they may have to do is grieve, because perhaps for a long time, Jane was the higher desire partner, or she was the one who would kind of lead them into an erotic space, or perhaps they were at least more matched than they are now. So the first thing they may need to do, shoulder to shoulder, is just grieve a little bit. And then from that space of grief, a whole bunch of pathways open up for how they might honor that difference. My new favorite book on this is a book called Desire by Dr. Lauren Fogel Mercy and Dr. Jennifer Wenzel. And so I want them to have a copy of that book and work on that book together, because desire discrepancy is so freaking common for couples. It is, in fact, the number one problem that couples take to a sex therapist. So I'm not saying whether they do or don't need a sex therapist, but what I'm saying is that this is really, really common, and there are ways to work with it. And a lot of it has to do with like, what does help? If Jane used to have a lot of spontaneous desire, like she just would get horny and just want to have sex, how can she now cultivate responsive desire? What are the things that she can do, that her wife can do, that help her remember that some touch would feel good? Even if orgasm is more difficult, or even if it's not top of mind, what helps her remember, I do like connecting with you in this way. Okay, I'm going on and on. I want to hear from you, Laura. What's landing? What's not landing?
No, I think what's landing so much, and you're not the first who says it, but it's always so important to reiterate it, that everything starts with really yourself and self-compassion.
Mm.
And not directly looking for the solution with somebody else, but really looking at first within yourself, and just, because that road of perimenopause and that journey requires self-compassion often, because we tend to be quite harsh on ourselves, and like, oh, I'm not my old self, and oh, I don't feel like, as sparkly and as sexy as I used to 5 years ago. And I think this kind of, punishment often makes us very impatient with ourselves. So I really love that you're saying, before you can reach out to her and reignite that bond, what's really important is that you take care of yourself and that you have understanding for yourself. And I think that really hit home.
It's perimenopause is at the intersection of two isms, sexism and ageism, right? I mean, that's what it's like. So every story that Jane is telling herself about the sack of potatoes, it's not a Jane story. Jane has been a good listener. Jane has been socialized by our culture that says that women's aging, like women as women age, they are less beautiful. They are less sexual. They are less visible. That's not anything that Jane made up. That is how she's been socialized, which is why your show is important. All of this, like reducing the stigma around the menopause journey, is so important, because
Yeah.
that's how we subvert the messages, right? There that we, sure, you don't look the way you look when you were 20, but why is that less beautiful, right? Why aren't the curves and the softness like really wonderful? Why isn't, why aren't these, like, why do we equate these changes with less beautiful? And what emerges instead? Like, I know for me, I mean, I'm right here with you, Jane, around a lot of this. And I know for me, it's a lot of like really celebrating the, like, my wisdom, my groundedness. Like, there are ways I can show up both in my work and in my intimate partnership, that yes, I don't live in the body I lived in when I was 25, but there are ways I
Mm-hmm.
can show up in a sexual experience with my partner, for example, in ways I couldn't show up when I was 25, right? There's like
Mm-hmm.
kind of a comfort or a groundedness or a settledness in my body. And so I
Mm-hmm.
once heard a friend of mine, Tammy Nelson, say, I wish I had the body that I had when I was 25 with the sexual wisdom that I have now. It's like, why can't those two things come
Which is
together?
so true. That is so funny. Yeah, that is so true. And you're right. We often tend to grieve our old selves instead of welcoming our new selves. And I think that is very
Beautiful.
important. Like,
Beautiful. Mm-hmm.
it's like this change of like, where's the old Laura? But it's really about, there's the new Laura, which I should welcome, which is, which can be just as beautiful as the version beforehand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. I also want Jane to be doing things that light her up, like,
mhm.
what is it? What's Jane's favorite Jane? Like, when does she feel most herself? And there's something that happens, I think, in midlife that also maybe a refinding of something that you used to love. So, Jane, like, what did you love when you were 12? What lit you up when you were 16? What was your kind of passion project when you were 22? Like, what are ways that you can kind of like perhaps even go back to or discover something that feels like pleasurable, pleasure filled, um, that is right, a way of connecting to the younger yous, in doing it in a way that your current you will really enjoy and feel alive with. I know for me that
Yeah.
is, we just we are brand new empty nesters. Um,
Mhm.
and one of the things that was really important for me was to start dancing again. So I signed up for a cardio funk dance class, and every Monday at 6:30, that is where you will find me, because I need that class like I need air and water. I need to be in
Oh,
a community of women with loud ass music and just shaking what my mama gave me. That how, like, so what is Jane's version of the cardio funk class? It may not be that, but what is her sort of a happy place, where she gets to be like, oh, this is me. Here I am.
yeah. And we often forgot, right, what our 12-year-old self liked and
Yeah.
wanted.
Yeah.
And it's
Mm.
it's a time for discovery. I love it. I would love to move to the next questions because there's
Good,
just
please.
so much wisdom, and I don't want to skip anything, and I want to give everybody the same opportunity to hear from you. The next one is coming from Melody. Good afternoon. I'm Melody, 39, from Brooklyn. I'm just starting perimenopause, and the first thing I want to get rid of is my husband. Sounds funny, but it ain't. How can I rekindle what we had 3 years ago? I think something which you said already, Dr. Solomon, on the first question really resonates with this question as well, but I would just love to, for you to give an angle for Melody here as well.
Yeah. So when I hear her wanting to get rid of her husband, I mean, first of all, my first response was to giggle a little bit, but I don't know that was sort of like exasperation, or if she really is questioning the state of her marriage, if she really has questions about the viability of this marriage, if it feels like something is like crystallizing or being revealed as she enters this chapter. I of course want them in couples therapy. Couples therapy has a 75% effectiveness rate. I want you reaching out for somebody I mean, in terms of, helping people feel better, feel more connected, feel clear about their relationship. It works. Couples therapy works. And when you go, somebody can be a really wonderful therapist and a really lousy couples therapist. Couples therapy, just like I would never, ever do therapy. I would never do child therapy because I am literally not trained to work with children, even though I legally could with my license. I should not. Nobody should bring their child to me for therapy. It is the same with couples therapy. Couples therapy is a unique skill set. So when you go to if you decide to hire a couples therapist, you ask that person, the therapist, and you say, are you trained to work with couples? If you see after their name the letters LMFT, licensed marriage and family therapist, they've been trained to work with couples. If you see on their website, that they've got a certificate, or they do emotion focused therapy, or they've been trained with the Gottman Institute, or, there are ways that somebody can be a social worker or a psychologist, but they've gotten training to work with couples. So just ask, because it's different. Couples therapy is not individual therapy. So that's okay. So that's one piece of it. I was wondering, and Laura, you tell me, I was wondering if maybe one of Melody's early perimenopausal symptoms is just irritability and mood changes, and who is easier to be moody with than a freaking husband? I think that oftentimes our intimate partners feel like the safest targets for our irritability, or we may protect our kids from our irritability, and so it goes there. So of course I want her, in collaboration with her health team, because irritability, like, he may not be different. It may just be that she's like, her skin is like thin as rice paper now, emotionally, and she's just like easily activated and annoyed. So I'd want her to be really tending to that and having support. What would help her feel? Are there ways that you could have kind of medical or physiological support to feel a bit smoother, like she's got some more capacity? I of course want them in conversation about if it's sort of mental load, domestic labor, like kind of gendered divisions of labor in the home that are driving her crazy. My favorite resource here is Eve Rodsky's work. Her book is called Fair Play, and there's a Fair Play documentary, and she's developed an entire system for couples to use. So if that irritability is like, you've got to be freaking kidding me that I need to remind you to take out the trash again, where maybe when she was 36, she'd be like, baby, take out the trash. And now she's like stabby when he won't take out the trash. I should not say stabby. That's not a nice way of saying it. She's angry and irritable and frustrated and at her wit's end. Then it is probably time for renegotiation and revisiting of domestic labor, that maybe what worked for them 3, 5, 10 years ago will not hold up as she moves through this menopausal journey. She actually needs to have him step up and step in. So those are some thoughts. And I also, here's what we didn't have with Jane. Now what we have with Melody is going through something that her husband will not go through. They're on a very different journey. So what is that like? Can she talk to him about it? I think there's something that we do. I think boys and men are socialized to view everything that has to do with periods and fertility and women's stuff, I'm doing air quotes, as like kind of weird, foreign, scary, dirty, can't be spoken about. So I don't know what his, he has, just like she has a relationship to her perimenopause, he has a relationship to her perimenopause. Then how does she need to socialize him into her journey, right? What does he need to be reading and watching and listening to so that he understands what she's going through? And can the two of them go shoulder to shoulder and look together at how are we as a couple going to navigate my perimenopause journey? It's a
Absolutely,
really legit
absolutely.
question. Mhm.
This is one of the most common questions in our community as well. If women are in a heterosexual relationship, like how can I explain perimenopause to my partner and
Oh,
to my husband?
yeah. Oh,
Because in the worst case, the husband or the partner doesn't take it seriously.
yep.
And in the best case, he understands it and he does take it seriously, but still he cannot really appreciate and really understand what she is going through. So I think what you're saying is so vital to really say, okay, what can he read? What can
Yeah.
he, which podcast can he listen to? How can he understand? We even had some experts recommending, if you go to your gynecologist, bring him with you so he understands the
Wonderful.
conversations, he understands what's happening. So I think what you're
Wonderful.
saying is so crucial to really not just say, hey, this is what I'm going through right now, but really trying, if he's open for it in the best case, really enabling him to educate himself.
Good. And don't you think, Laura, this is where we have to go as a culture. It shouldn't be that he gets like kudos and props for learning about her journey. Like every man ought to understand this journey because every man who works with a female colleague, every brother, every father, like this
Absolutely.
is just, yeah. So this ought to be really normative. Like I was thinking about this study that came out where like 20% of college, if you show a diagram of the external female genitalia to college students, 20% of college age men can accurately identify 80% of the female genitalia. What the hell? That's ridiculous. Like that's so that level, like that, those knowledge gaps, deep, profound
Yeah.
knowledge gaps are real. And if they're real around college age men understanding women's bodies, I'm sure that
Yeah.
they're as real around midlife men understanding women's journeys.
Do you know what, Dr. Solomon? I even think that not maybe college students, but I think that just the basic female anatomy, I feel like even many women couldn't point exactly,
Oh
what
yeah.
is where. We have a lot of education doctors coming in talking about what is the vulva, what is the vagina,
Yeah.
what is the difference. I think, even
Yeah.
that is, and I include myself. I learned from these conversations also tremendously, just
Me too.
not generalizing and really understanding the real body parts and not the down here kind of vocabulary.
Down there.
Down
Good. Good.
there. All right, off to the next question. This time there's no name.
Okay.
It was just left as an anonymous voice message. And you pointed at some already, so I wrote down desire and fair play. The question is, are there any books you recommend about maintaining intimacy during this phase? If so, which ones?
Ooh, 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 ooh. I'm looking around my office. Okay. So my favorite books about sex, I of course love Emily Nagoski's Come As You Are, which is definitely much more about female sexuality, not necessarily about female sexuality at midlife, but really about just normalizing and understanding our sexuality. So that's a really, really huge one. I
Yeah.
mentioned desire. Oh, I love Cynthia Darnell wrote a wonderful book called Sex When You Don't Feel Like It. Um,
Mm.
it's a really important one. Hang on. So many good, so many good books. Um, well, I of course love anything by Ian Kerner. There's a book called She Comes First that he wrote a while back about female pleasure and female orgasm. There's one called He Comes Next. No, it's called, I think it is He Comes Next. I love those. And one more would be, well, Dr. Lauren Stryker. I don't know if you've introduced Dr. Lauren Stryker to the community. She's
She has been on
one.
our
Okay.
podcast.
So
Yes.
yeah, so then
Yes.
her book is called Love, Sex Again.
Yes.
And of
Absolutely.
course, another just like really foundational one is my dear friend Esther Perel wrote a book called Mating in Captivity, which is about just desire and sexuality and long-term relationships. So Mating in Captivity is a really foundational resource as well.
Yeah.
I'm
Could you
going to
in
think
this
of 10,
context?
I'm going to think of
Sorry,
10 more and then I'll have to email them to you. I'm going to think of many more and then I'm going to have to email
please.
them to you. But that will get this listener started for sure.
Perfect. And could you in this context also say a little bit more about your new book, Love Every Day? Just like if that, the
Yeah.
impact it could also have on somebody in perimenopause and
Yeah.
in her early 40s, late 30s.
Yeah, it's so funny. Right. I did not think of myself. So I also have a book called Taking Sexy Back, which is a journey, a journey to sexual self-awareness for women and for vulva-bodied people. And that is not necessarily about midlife, and it's not really about menopause, but it really is understanding just our sexual self, like this, this sexual self, and how to cultivate a sense from the inside out of who you are and how you want to show up in intimate partnership. So that's also maybe a helpful resource for them. But yes, my new book is Love Every Day. And I think this is a really beautiful resource for individuals or for couples. So I could imagine this member of your community working with her partner on the book. So what this book is, Love Every Day, is 365 relational self-awareness prompts, insights, reflections. It's a collection of mini essays. My whole life have loved these one a day types of books. I just feel like whenever I've had one in my life, I've always felt like, oh, this is so generous that this author is giving me something for every day of the entire year. And so it's really fun now for me to be the author who has given, is giving this out, this collection of one every day. And so they're just micro lessons, micro reflections. So you can work on this on your own. And I think certainly in the perimenopause journey, because it is a time of identity shift and relational shift, to have a resource where you can kind of touch in with yourself. Where am I? Where was I? Where am I? Where am I going? Whether it's alone or with your partner, I really like this resource. So it is compassionate, it's curious, and it's really comprehensive. It'd be hard to think of an aspect of relationship that we don't touch on over the course of the year. So of course, I would love this member of the community to have Love Every Day by her nightstand or on her coffee table for her to use and for her and her partner to use.
I love that. And I love, like you're saying, I'm also big. We have the Perimenopause Journal, which is 100-day kind of, journaling
Perfect.
around here. But I really love, like you're saying, I really love this. It seems like this little gift for yourself when you have every day, another prompt or another insight or another way of practicing either sexuality or gratitude. I think that is not only inspirational, but also incredibly practical. So I really applaud you for that.
I was thinking about your journal also being really beautiful for Melody and Jane as well, right? Because for Jane, it would be, can the perimenopause journal help her kind of hold on to all the facets of the experience, not just the loss? And then for Melody, if she has a bit more understanding and compassion for herself around this journey, can she offer something a bit more patient to her husband?
Yeah, that's true.
Good.
I love that. Okay. Love that. Perfect. Next one, which I find a very interesting one because it kind of opens the gates to other people in your life. Hi, excited to hear you talk, Dr. Solomon. I'm Cassidy and I'm 45 years old from Boston. In your experience, what role does emotional support from friends and family play in mitigating the relationship drought of perimenopause?
That's a great question. I think that was for me because I entered my perimenopause journey younger than I didn't have any. That's not true. I had no same age peers going through it. So, but it was a time when I really did reach for and connect with my older friends. I've got, as many of us do, I have friends that are a range of ages. So it really was a time when I needed my elder sisters, the friends of mine who were a little bit older to kind of support and validate me. And so I do think, right? I mean, I think part of the problem with intimate relationships is that part of the problem is that we approach our intimate relationships expecting and wanting them to be our end all be all. And that is, again, just like we were saying before, this is not a Jane thing. This is a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing. We, especially girls and women, are taught that our intimate partnership is our first and foremost. It's our primary. We grow up on a steady diet of romanticized stories and fairy tales and knights in shining armor and Disney princesses who are like literally brought back to life by the kiss of a man, like we come by this shit real honestly. And so I think what happens then is that we devalue female friendship, and especially if we grew, this is a really interesting place for a member of your community to do some reflecting on how did you watch your mom and your aunties and your grandma navigate female friendships? How central were they?
Mhm.
How did they hold on to female friendship along with intimate partnership? Like how
Mhm.
did you watch them kind of prioritize and make space for all those different roles? And if you didn't have role models of women in your life that really centered female friendship, of course it's going to feel it may not feel to you like that is a place to resource yourself. But
Yeah.
what I know for sure, like I have a girls trip coming up next week with my friends from, well,
Oh,
one is
nice.
from kindergarten, and then we picked up two more girls in fifth grade. And so we've been this little crew of four forever.
Wow,
And so
that's
we're all
special.
turning 50. So we're doing our 50th birthday reunion next week. And I can guarantee you that I will come home a more patient and loving wife to my husband after that trip. I can guarantee you, because
Mhm.
it happens every single time, because I will go there and I will vent about him and tell stories about him. And then this one will, and this one will, and we'll put all of our marital and relationship stories and dramas in the middle of the circle, and we'll,
Mhm.
tease them all apart and drink some wine and put them all together and go home, really full of ourselves and full of that feeling of connection and lack, like feeling less alone. And so I think that is
Yeah.
vital, 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 like to step away from your marriage. And listen, the girlfriends have to be validating and elevating, right? Rather than critical, or judgmental. So it depends on your
Mhm.
girlfriends, and you've got to cultivate relationships where you can feel supported. But
Mhm.
I think that I think the answer is embedded in the question, which is, I think it's huge. I think there's a huge role for female friendship throughout life, but perhaps especially around midlife and menopause transition, where having your cup filled there takes pressure
Mhm.
off of the marriage and then allows you to kind of turn back towards the marriage feeling nourished rather than expecting a partner to nourish us.
That's so rich. Thank you. I mean, we see that, and everything you're saying is so validating, because it's also something we see in our Perry community, just that feeling of not being alone. And you're right, it needs to be a support group which is positive and kind of has an uplifting spirit to it.
Yeah.
But that then, gives so much again more room to breathe and be more patient in other aspects of your
Mm,
life. So community and friendships, and just like you're saying, refilling your cup outside of your four walls within your relationship is just vital.
vital. You know who else it's vital for? It is for those of us in straight marriages. It's vital for men. We've got
Yeah.
an actual crisis of male friendship, right? The number of men, especially for us Gen X people, I don't have the number at the top of my head, but the percentage of men who say there is one person they talk about their feelings with, and that is their partner, their female partner, that
Yeah.
number is very, very high. The number of men who report having zero friends or one friend is sky high, especially in our generation. So this is the
Yeah.
revolution that really needs to happen, is men creating communities with each other. And I'm so grateful to my male therapist colleagues who do men's work, who do men's retreats. And so I think I think that men need to be filling each other's cups, because so often men come to their female partners with an empty cup and they're like, do it all for me and with me, because there's nobody else that I bring my stuff to. So I
Thank you
think
for
that's
saying that.
part of it
Yeah.
too.
Because I feel like talking about stigmas, mental health and just emotional well-being is even a bigger stigma for men, and just,
Yes.
um, exchanging themselves and just really opening up. I'm now talking cliches, and the numbers much better, but I think it's very good that you're saying that not only the woman in a heterosexual relationship, but also the man needs to get out there and have his group, his support group
Yes.
to
And
just feel validated.
can you imagine what it would be like for a group of men to get together and be like, okay, so how are you all supporting your wives through perimenopause?
Yeah,
That's the revolution right there, right? Like men coming
I
together
love
and
that.
being like, what's it like for you? What's it like for you? How are you supporting her? What skills do you have? Like, so just the way Perry is supporting, you said 60,000 of the Perry community is supporting each other. Okay. So how about male
Yeah,
Perry, for those who are married to women or loving women who are going through this, right? Like their own community of support and what gets activated in them,
I
what
love
it's
that.
like to witness somebody going through this. Okay. Yeah.
I'm writing that down as an extension for our community,
There's
the
your
men
next
meeting.
project.
That's the
Yep.
next
I'm
project
sure
for
you needed
sure.
another project, but go for it. I will cheer for you every step of the way.
Ah, I love this. We're already at our fifth question. I feel like this has been flying by, but so much vital information and conversation. The fifth one also doesn't have a name. She is saying, "Hey all, maybe a stupid questions, but are there any activities or hobbies that could be useful in reigniting the spark in our relationship during this life stage?"
That's great. That's a great question, because what she is intuiting is that the novelty is, is one of the ways that we spark connection. So that idea, because there's a few things that happen when a couple like does a thing together. First of all, the mere fact that we signed up for a Thursday night cooking class, the mere fact of doing that is like, there's the healing in that, because what you're saying to yourselves and each other is, we matter. We matter so much that we hold this time and this space to invest in our relationship. It's why I love couple scheduling sex, because when you schedule sex, what you're saying is this matters, and we gotta make time for it. We gotta not let other things crowd it out, because other things will crowd it out. So I love the like, there's just the symbolism of scheduling sex. It's also why I think it's also, frankly, part of the healing benefit of couples therapy, because what you're saying is every Wednesday at noon, we, put work away for 50 minutes and we talk about us, and we get support on us. So there is something to that point, it actually literally does not matter what you do. It's the fact that you are claiming a time and a space that is we time and we space. So I love, I think we get these ideas that a date night equals Saturday night dinner and a movie. Why? Who says that? Why couldn't date night be a new hike on a Friday morning? Why couldn't date night be, whatever, Tuesday at an art museum? So the what matters less, so much less than the fact that you're doing it. And really, if what you're doing is saying, we want something for us, then the world is your oyster, because what romance is whatever the two of you decided. It's the just to get nerdy for a moment, one of my favorite psychologists, Katha Weingarten, has a definition of intimacy, which is that intimacy is the co-creation of meaning that leads to coordinated action. So in that way, for one couple, intimacy might be salsa dancing. For another couple, intimacy might be making out a drive-in movie. And for another couple, intimacy might be a really challenging hike. And for another couple, intimacy might be bungee jumping. The thing itself doesn't matter. It's the co-creation of meaning. We love this. We value this, that leads to coordinated action.
I love this.
So, and then the last thing I'll say is that the embedded in the question again is the answer, which is the sense of like, we need a new experience together. And she's right. The research shows that when couples put themselves together in an experience that is novel, where everyone's kind of on shaky ground and everyone's like, we've never been here before, we've never seen this before, we've never done this before, it is enlivening for the relationship, because I'm having a new experience alongside you. So my system is activated right next to you. So there's that like kind of co-regulated up leveling of our systems. But also, I get to see you differently. You're not walking around the house in your boxers and t-shirt. You are whatever, looking at this piece of art, and you've got something really kind of interesting to say about this piece of art. So I'm seeing you in a different context, and that can spark attraction as well. Okay.
Yeah. So true. Yeah.
Great. Oh my God, Laura, these questions are amazing. What thoughtful women you've got here in this community. I'm loving all of it.
I love that. I love them too. And we're already at the end of the questions. We already have our 5 questions, but I love them too. And I feel like there were many more, but they really reflect kind of, the key emotions and concerns women in our community have around the conversation of relationships. And I really like that they were diverse and just reflecting different thoughts and different situations as well. I wanted to say one thing to scheduling sex. I just saw Emily from Sex with Emily live at an event, and she also mentioned she was amazing. She was at the Swell event, and she also mentioned scheduling sex. It's not the second time that I'm hearing it, because she was also like, it may not sound super romantic, but it just gives you're planning it, and that planning can then really reactivate your, your sexual relationship, which I find just fascinating and so true as well.
So true.
Yeah. Dr. Solomon, before we part, we're almost at the end. Could you just tell everyone where they can find you, and also what is next for you, next to Love Every Day, the book, any other projects which are coming up, just to give that kind of a platform.
Thank you. I think the best way to connect with me is my website, Dr.alexandrahdolomon.com. And there you will find really a treasure trove of all the things I've been building for a very long time. So there's everything from a collection of blogs that you can search by topic, social media handles. So you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook, links to my podcast. We have a weekly podcast called Reimagining Love, which is a blend of conversations with guest experts and then solo episodes that I do on just these kinds of relationship knots or central relationship questions, both for couples and for singles and people coming out of relationship. And then the 3 books, Loving Bravely, Taking Sexy Back, and of course the new one, Love Every Day, which is a really beautiful, really giftable book. So it's a gift you can give yourself, you can give to the people in your life. And on the website, also, you'll see e-courses. I have an e-course for couples who are recovering from infidelity to explore whether and how trust can be rebuilt. It's a really challenging but vital resource for couples who are in that difficult chapter. And then also my college class, Marriage 101, I turned into, I call it Marriage 101 for the grown and sexy. So just a comprehensive relationship course that people can take as individuals or couples. And then what's next for me? I don't know, Laura. I think my next thing is to rest for a bit, because launching a book is the big, as you've done your workbook. So so it is creating.
I had the pleasure of working with all these different co-authors, so I didn't
Wonderful.
write it all myself, but we have all these different menopause experts in there. So that's yeah. Okay, so what's next for you is then taking a little bit of a break from writing a book. I understand. Thank you so much, Alexandra. I will reach out to Caitlin for all the different links.
Great.
You were mentioning a couple of books. I would love to bring all to where to pre-order the book. She already sent me some assets of the pictures of it. So we want to bring this all in. We have, like you as well, already a good reach. So I hope this will bring some traffic as well to you,
That's great.
to your site. And good. This has been a delightful 45 minutes. Thank you so much. You're so empathic and smart in articulating sometimes very complex things. And it will be very helpful for many. So thank you for that.
Good. Well, I appreciate you holding the space for this conversation and collecting such thoughtful questions and really giving. I think we were able to kind of cover a wide range in a relatively short amount of time. So
absolutely. All right. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy your weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.